The Drive with Tim Donnelly, 99.9 The Fan on a Friday. I'm Tim Donnelly, joined here at the Aluminum Company of North Carolina, where we will be broadcasting the entire show by Dennis Cox. Graham Hill back at the studio, keeping us up and running. The reason for our appearance here at the Aluminum Company of North Carolina, it's their fall open house today and tomorrow. So it should be open until about 6 o'clock today. If you're like, oh, no, I didn't plan for it, that's fine. Tomorrow, starting at 8.
They're going to have food trucks. They're actually going to have Bojangles for breakfast. They're going to have food truck in the middle of the day, ice cream. So guess what? You can come get some food, look around, see all that they have to offer. And they're giving prizes away too, gift cards, the whole deal. They got a lot going on here.
That's why we are here. The reason why we're on the air is to get you set for this weekend of football. It is a football Friday, which means we'll be making picks. We'll be setting the stage for the games to come. And it's impossible to talk about this weekend's games without talking about NC State trying to bounce back from last week against Tennessee. And I actually I appreciate what Dennis and Graham do producing the show, obviously. But every once in a while, it's like a Pixar movie.
Okay.
Where you got to go back and rewatch it, or you got to really watch the little Easter eggs, right? You don't know what's going to pop up. I really respect that the intro today isn't the one we were using earlier in the week, which had the interception thrown by Bryce Young. It had some of the lowlights from last week. Instead, this was one that brought some of the highlights from a season ago, because they're turning the page. It's not about last week anymore. It's about the next week. And NC State's trying to make that same transition. It's not about Tennessee in the Dukes Mayo kickoff. It's not about not being able to score or execute your offense at the level you wanted to. It's about doing those things against Louisiana Tech this weekend. It's turning the page. For me, this is where, as a media personality, you kind of get to talk out of both sides of your mouth. And I think it's okay as long as you admit it. I don't like when I'll use this as an example. One time, and I won't even say the media personality because I don't want to drag anybody, but I was at the Super Bowl, covering the Super Bowl, and another media personality that worked for a particular 4-letter network came to our booth. And I said, all right, this is probably Tuesday of Super Bowl week. And I said, all right, who are you picking? And he literally looked at me and said, well, I'm alternating. So no matter what, 50% of the radio stations here think I got it right.
I think I know exactly what you're talking about. But go on.
And then they gave me a prediction. And I went, well, that is just the worst thing ever. But at least you admitted it, right? At least you're not pretending fully that you're getting it right to those 50% of the deals here. So I'm openly saying, I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth on this.
Okay.
We've talked extensively this week about Grayson McCall, the quarterback of NC State, having to let go of the pressure.
Take a breath.
Feels like he's wearing it a little heavy, right? He's playing a little tight, maybe pressing, which, by the way, is not a non-human reaction.
Sure.
Like, it makes sense. He is a player that was brought in to take NC State to new heights. He was a player that was brought in to take advantage of all this NIL money spent. Right? Coastal Carolina comes with different expectations than NC State. Carter Finley's simply a bigger stadium. All of that applies. So we've talked extensively about him having to let that go. Now, on the other side of my mouth, I'm going to say this. This week is all about Grayson McCall.
Okay.
This week is I believe, a pressure-packed game on Grayson McCall. So he has to not feel it, but I'm not saying it doesn't exist.
Both things can be true. Both things can be true.
Yeah, exactly. And maybe it's not fully out of both sides of my mouth. But NC State has shown a bunch of holes on their roster through 2 games, right? They should have beaten Western Carolina by more if you're just looking at talent.
Yep.
And then the Tennessee game happened, and it was what it was. I don't think Grayson McCall was the biggest problem in either of those games.
No.
I think that probably goes to the offense and defensive lines. But none of the goals that we keep reminding everybody are still attainable by State are attainable unless Grayson McCall plays really well.
Yep.
Right? We can sit here and say mathematically, technically, the ACC championship is still alive.
Oh, all of it's there.
You haven't played any of your ACC games. We can say it all. But none of it becomes realistic or plausible until Grayson McCall levels up his play to not just a replacement level, to a above average level, to a really good level. So without last week being his quote-unquote fault, just giving him his appropriate share of the blame pie, he has to level up. And this week against Louisiana Tech at home, especially with how Northern Illinois now suddenly is a top 25 program. So your other non-conference game is certainly not any kind of a get-right game. Louisiana Tech, then Clemson, then Northern Illinois, then the rest of your ACC schedule. This is the week to get Grayson McCall back in rhythm. And we'll take a page out of the NC State men's basketball team from last year. All year we were saying they have to get their transfers on the right page. They have to learn how to play together. And literally at the last possible second, they finally got all those transfers to figure it out, and they went on that magical run, right? It clicked essentially halfway through the very first lose and go home game of their season. Football doesn't have that luxury. You can't wait until the
can't wait till week 8.
Yeah, exactly. You can't. You have to do it now. So if Grayson McCall and the rest of these transfers on offense are going to click at the last possible second, it's the Clemson game, which means the Louisiana Tech game is your last chance to run through any other ideas you have, try it, figure it out, feel it out, because by the time Clemson shows up, Grayson McCall has to be playing above average ACC quarterback, and then we can talk about offensive line, defensive line, getting your playmakers more involved, everything else that needs to happen. But as everybody knows, football starts with the quarterback.
I think it's important. This is something I would always tell my players when I coached, and this is especially like goaltenders, because I coach lacrosse. Goaltenders, they can get in their heads real quick.
Those onesie positions, pitchers, goaltenders, quarterbacks, the ones that are on their island.
On their own thing. I would say don't let one bad game turn into another. Like, you can't let the carryover. You get to learn from it, but you've probably heard it before, the 24-hour rule in football. Oh, yeah. Like 24 hours either to celebrate or cry about the win or loss. Then you're on to the next thing. Like, it's literally it, because guess what? What's done is done. The only thing you can do is actually change and improve moving forward. That's it. That's what I tell them. Like, hey, look, you know where you missed that throw. You know where you got to be. The receivers and all that, you know exactly what you guys missed. Okay, now you got to try and implement it again, but don't think about that interception that you threw. Just see the play and then make it. That's really it.
Have you seen the movie? This is a deep cut, so I'm going to explain it.
Go on.
It's either The Watch or Neighborhood Watch. It's the one with Ben Stiller.
It's The Watch. Yeah.
And there's at one point, Jonah Hill and Ben Stiller are screaming at a guy that egged their house, a kid that egged their house. I forget what he did. And he's sitting in a chair, and they're just yelling kind of oxymorons at him, like, close your eyes and look at me. Shut your mouth and hear what I'm saying. Like, they're just
shut your mouth when you talk to me.
Yeah, they're just screaming all these wild things. At times, I think that's what it is. It's like playing quarterback in the ACC, where you're like completely relaxed, but also learn from all those mistakes, but also understand that this game is really important. But also, I need you to let it rip, and interceptions don't matter. But also, if you throw an interception, that's going to be the death of our offense. It's like, it's just so much is coming at you, which is why I'm saying the pressure is up on Grayson McCall.
Yeah. Time
is running out, right? If you're going to win an ACC championship, if you're going to play for an ACC championship game, it all needs to be figured out essentially by the Clemson game. And then on top of that, you need to play free, play loose, like you're in the recess back at home. It's a lot of crazy stuff going on. Dave Doeren, the head coach of NC State, spoke to the media, and he talked about player meetings, meaning having meetings player to player with one another is one of the ways this team's getting ready.
I mean, one of the things I get to do with captains, with guys that want to lead better, is have these one-on-one talks. And a lot of the times it's, Coach, what do you think I should do? What's a good way for me to help this player? What do you think I need to say? And for me, it's, what do you think needs to be said? And sometimes it's something that needs to be said with just those guys in the room, so that they can go into certain things that they don't want to say, maybe in front of the staff, about themselves, and call each other up and challenge each other and get on the same page. That's healthy.
I agree. The best teams police themselves. I agree with what he's saying. The one thing I will caution him against is when coaches try to instigate players-only meetings, it becomes easy. Like, players, if they do it on their own, those are the best teams I've ever been on. When, if somebody is not having a good day, someone didn't have a good practice, and other players immediately jump in, it's the best teams I've ever been on. When coaches are, calling a team meeting and then saying, the coaches are going to walk out of here and we're going to close the doors behind us.
You need to figure it out.
And you guys can say whatever you need to say. That's never worked for me, because then it's like, are you going to force us to do this? Then somebody gets up there, performs a speech for 7 minutes, and then you walk out and act like everything's better. Nothing was actually addressed. The players only stuff has to let If he's insinuating that they should, I'd reel it in a little bit.